Welcome to episode 10. Wow, 10 of the Pick and Roll podcast.
The big 1-0. Who thought we would make it?
We're finally here. What a journey it's been.
It's been a big journey. A lot of time, a lot of effort. Yeah. But it's starting to look like it's going to pay off.
Yep, 100 subs. Just cracked that a couple of days ago.
It's gonna keep going. We're going to keep putting more and more time and effort in. Hopefully make it a better podcast for you guys to enjoy. So, yeah, bright future ahead.
Yes. Today on the schedule, we've got listing every team's biggest point of improvement when they go into the playoffs. I worded that really poorly, but pretty much every team's biggest weakness and what they need to improve heading into the playoffs. Do you want to get straight into it? We can go from bottom to top of each conference. Which conference do you want to start with? I've got the West written. But
Okay, we'll do the West first.
So first we've got the Rockets. So we're including the Rockets in this because, of course, they're only one game behind the Warriors. And that really looks like it's going to tighten up because the Rockets are on an 11-game winning streak as we speak. With only about 9 games left of the regular season, it's really starting to tighten up. And one of those teams will be very disappointed if the Rockets end up missing out. It's going to be really tough because, of course, they've gone on this push in the most important time of the season, and then it'll feel like it's all for nothing. But really, I think it's all learning for either team, mainly the Rockets because they're so young. But pretty much for the Rockets, they've missed the last 9 games of Şengün with his bone-bruised knee. And in that time, they're second in offensive rating in the entire league, 7th in defensive rating in the entire league, and they're top 3 in pace as well, which they were in the bottom half of pace with Şengün, but I assume it's because with Jalen Green running the team instead of Şengün, he's a much pacier player. He just likes to get out and score.
Yeah, faster to just put up a shot instead of Şengün taking time.
In the half court, just like picking apart the defense. Jalen Green has averaged 31.8 since the beginning of their run, which is second in the league behind Luka. And he's got the second highest player impact rating among starters in the last 11 games in the entire league. So he's one of the most impactful players in the league in the last 11, and it really shows with them winning so many games. When the Rockets need to improve on one thing, in my opinion, and that is adjusting back to the pace and the offense when Şengün comes back, because we've seen that they've sort of found a little identity in these last 11 games, which I don't think they were really able to catch for the first 50 games, 60 games of the NBA season. So it's just going to be hard, and especially when they have to face the Lakers or the Warriors. It could be the Warriors, but they're 2-2 against the Lakers this year, and that was including Şengün. But with the way that they're playing right now, I'd see them beating the Lakers.
Really?
Yeah, I would see them beating the Lakers with the roster that they've got at the moment, because, as I said, top 10 in both defense, offense, while the Lakers are really lacking defensively. I think they're 8th offense or something.
That's coming from someone who's high on the Lakers.
I've been high on the Lakers in their last 10 games, except for their last loss. Who was against? Who did they play? I know they had LeBron and
Pacers.
They had Pacers against with LeBron and AD. So that was a bit of a.
Just, yeah, they're not that consistent.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about the Lakers in a second, but yeah.
But I just think it's going to be hard to adjust back to a Şengün-led offense. So I really just hope that they can work something out. It's going to look completely different, but it'll be interesting to see how they adjust.
Yeah, I don't really...
Assuming that he's back.
I don't really want to piggyback off your idea, but that is what I've got written down, is adjusting to the way the team was with Şengün, and also not relying on baby father Jalen Green. Because we've seen what he can do, 31.8 points per game. But the chances are when the pace slows down in playoffs, he's not going to average those same amounts. So it's up to other players on the team, a quite inexperienced team at that, to step up. So I don't know if they're going to be able to do that, possibly. But if they were going to improve on something heading into the playoffs, it'd be filling out those roles. Yeah.
Yeah. And against the Lakers, neither Şengün or Jalen Green have been specifically dominant, like really dominant. They've averaged around 20 points per game each in those 4 games. But in a 1-game Lakers home, I don't know. Either way, it might be a little bit tough. I would probably have the Rockets at the moment winning, but again, that is their biggest weakness at the moment because they are so good in the last 11 games. So it's their biggest weakness is having their best player back. That is weird.
Yeah, it was just the chemistry, the flow. And yeah, I think the pace in the playoffs definitely favours Şengün in terms of production over Jalen Green. But it'll be interesting to see what will happen if they do make it. I kind of want them to make it just because it's such a good story, the underdogs, and it's such an interesting team. And they'll get such great experience from participating even in the play-in tournament heading into future years for a team that most people thought, I thought at the start of the season were nowhere really near playoff contention.
Yeah, we thought at the time pretty interesting moves when they moved Dylan Brooks. They moved Freddie Van Vliet. So
big contracts, but it seems to be working out. So
yeah, Dylan Brooks
shut my mouth.
But yeah, Dylan Brooks has been shooting about 50% from 3, 12 points per game in the 11-game run. And he's been playing really well on defense, other than his little outspurts here and there, which we always
You're
get
always
with
going to
Dylan.
get that.
Yeah. But yeah, we've got a young team there, and then we're going to transition to one of the older teams in the league. What have you got for the Warriors?
I've got 2 things. One is kind of a joke, but it's Draymond don't get ejected.
That is literally my backup note as well.
Yeah, because we saw what happened the other night when he got ejected. Yes, they did win. The Warriors did win the game in the end, but Curry was just cut, almost crying on the floor because you're fighting for a playing spot and you get ejected. What was it? 4 minutes into the game. Like, come on, you're not taking that seriously. And even though Draymond, his offensive production isn't as high as it used to be, he's still an integral part of the chemistry and the offense of that team. And he provides such veteran leadership when he wants to, when he's not being disruptive. But, you have to stay in the game at least. And, yeah, that's a main point because on any given night, he could just get ejected for no reason because he's angry.
So, and they bait him as well.
Yeah, they know it's going to happen. It's like in any given game. Like, the players that fire up easily and you're going to try and get them into foul trouble. Yeah. You're going to try and get them fired up.
Grant Williams the other day, he was trying his best. This is the day after the Orlando game where he got ejected in the first 4 minutes. He was trying to rev him up. He was going at his throat.
It nearly worked as well.
He was bumping.
He nearly got kicked.
Yeah. Draymond got angry and then he soothed it out a little bit and he stayed in for the rest of the game.
Imagine if he got ejected back-to-back games. That would have been...
I already think they're in tatters a little bit because of Draymond's... It obviously isn't doing anything good for them. It's negatively impacting them. And going into playoffs, I mean, it's a pretty bad time of year. I mean, he had his counselling midway through the year. I don't want to speculate because I don't know what's really going on the inside. But I would have thought after all of that went on, all the fines, all of the hate on the internet, that surely you would be over it. But it's obviously just a mental thing. It's obviously a hurdle that
it's always been a part of his game, but it's gone to the point where it's so negatively impacting the team. Like before you could say like, oh, he gets ejected sometimes, he gets angry, but he adds so much to the team and he's playing the majority of games when now it's a different story. And yeah, I just feel like, I don't want to dive too much into the personal part, but I feel like it's just like a stubbornness to change and he just is going to stick to what he does.
It is just sort of who he is a little bit. So it's just limiting that and not getting ejected. And I don't know whether that comes with teammate support, coach support.
I feel like they've tried that.
Yeah. And it seems to be away games as well that he gets ejected the most because obviously there's hostility all around you and it's very hard to not get fired up. What was your other point for the Golden State Warriors?
The other point was not relying on Steph Curry / give Steph Curry more minutes.
Okay.
Because in Steve Kerr's rotation, they've barely been running him over 30 minutes a night. Especially even in games that were close, that were winnable. I can't remember the exact example, but at least like a week ago, there was a game where they only just lost and Curry didn't come back in the game or something like that. Don't quote me on that example, but I know that Steve Kerr hasn't been running Curry as much in the rotation. And yes, he's older. And I do see that number probably going up when they're in the play.
Shorter rotation, so.
Yeah, of course. But still, I think the team can't just rely on a 35-year-old Curry to get them through. Yes, there's players that can get it done as well. Kuminga obviously taking a huge step this year. Clay, you can't rely on him. Inconsistent.
No.
But yeah, that was my main point. Don't rely on Curry to drag you through because at this point in his career, he's not going to average 40 points every night across a series. It's just not going to happen.
My point sort of supports that, where they can't rely on Curry as much. Mine is Andrew Wiggins' effectiveness. The Warriors are on a 3-game winning streak, and they've won in no small part to Andrew Wiggins, who has scored back-to-back 20-point games, which is maybe I don't know if he's done it this season, but I know it's at least one of the first times he's done that this season.
All-star starter, Andrew Wiggins.
A couple years ago, yeah, and we're seeing that. That was actually my point. He's becoming. We've seen sort of the Clay of late, the Wiggins of late in the last 3 games, and he's been a bigger part of the offense. They've run actual players through him without Clay, Jonathan Kuminga, and Draymond out in couple games. Draymond obviously getting ejected. I don't think he really needs to score more. I think he's getting up enough shots, but I think he needs to just improve his efficiency, which we have seen in the last couple games. He's shooting 35% from 3 this year when he was a 40% 3-point shooter in both the championship year and the year after last year. And it really just opens up the Warriors' offense. If you can imagine Clay shooting at least a little bit closer to the numbers that he was averaging 2022 previous, one of the best shooters in the league. And then Wiggins shooting as well. It just spaces the floor completely, and it's just going to give the same sort of effect as the Warriors had in their championship years when they were able to space the floor. They had I forgot what the motion was. He was in the LeBron podcast, LeBron JJ a couple days ago, where they have Draymond in the post and then Curry and Steph running amok on the strong side. And then they've got
Clay and Steph.
Clay and, what did I say?
Curry and Steph.
I meant Clay and Steph. No, Curry and Steph. And then they can have Andrew Wiggins in the opposite corner, and they can have another shooter next to him. And they're just unstoppable when they run that motion. I wish I remembered what the name of the motion was, but that was pretty much an integral part of their offense in their championship years. And when the team wins, Wiggins shoots 42% from 3. When the team loses, guess what he shoots?
31.
29% from 3. He's terrible when they lose, and that points to him being one of the biggest determinants of whether they win or lose. So I think that's just the most important part for the Warriors. If they can have a good shooting Wiggins, Clay and him are worse defenders than they're pretty much playing the worst defense since their rookie years. So I just want to see that. And I think it's really just a mental thing for Wiggins. Obviously, he had that personal stuff at the start of the year. So I think it's just a mentality thing, and I think he's hopefully coming back to that. And I think that's the reason that that's sort of coming back to him is they're putting him more in the offense and letting him run plays, building confidence, building mind, muscle, shooting, connection, everything else. I just think that's an important thing.
Look, we know what this team is capable of. We've seen it just 2 years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if they start playing at that level, but it's just they haven't strung together a series of games where it's looked like they've been at that level. So I'm not too high on the Warriors right now, and they could lose that spot to the Rockets. So we really don't know what's going to happen there. But moving on to another popular team, I'm interested to hear what you have to say about the Lakers.
I've got 3-point consistency from the supporting cast. Obviously, back to what the Warriors are doing, what you said, they rely on their stars too much. But with them out, like we saw the other day with LeBron out, we saw Austin Reeves really step up. He had a triple-double, 29 points, probably the best game of his entire career. So it's a good moment in time in the season to start proving yourself. And as I said before, I'm high on the Lakers going into the playoffs because we see them step up. We see role players step up in the playoffs when they shorten the rotation, give players more minutes, give them a green light. It changes, but and they're one of the lowest teams in terms of 3-point attempts on the season. They're not a big 3-point shooting team, so it's just so important that they're more consistent from three because when those shots go in, that's where they get their advantage because they're so good on the interior. And another little thing I had was defense to improve, but hopefully Vanderbilt will be back by them. And when he was playing in the first 12 games of the season, whatever it was, he had the fourth best on-off numbers on the team. So he was extremely impactful, and the Lakers got off to a pretty good start. So I think we'll see a bit of that when he comes back.
Yeah, we've seen in the past Lakers role players stepping up when it comes to big games. But your boys delved into the stats.
Ooh.
I don't usually do this,
Yeah.
and I don't know the exact stat, but I've got that they allow a lot of second chance points, the most second chance points out of any of the playoff teams or playing teams listed here.
Mm-hmm.
So although people could brush that aside as just being another stat, I think that's pretty big in terms of rebounding, in terms of turnovers when you're in the box seat, and that's crucial when it comes to playoff time. But also, yeah, I've got shooting consistency and role players, because the role players really determine. We know what LeBron and AD are going to do most nights. You know, AD, he has his off nights, which we see, but it's mainly the role players who's going to step up. Austin Reeves, D'Lo, Rui even. We'll see what happens come the play-in time, but I think they're going to make it through the play-in. I don't know.
Versus the Kings, who would you have in a one-game matchup? Kings home.
Kings home. I'm not that high on the Kings either.
I'm not high. I'm not high on them going into the playoffs, like going into the second round. But I think let me hear what you had to say. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's pretty much all I had to say.
Okay. Actually, we'll go into the Kings first. We'll talk about the Kings first. You go ahead.
So written down, I've got De'Aaron consistency and third star. In terms of, we know who their scorers are. You know, Sabonis is going to be consistent as always, double-double, triple-double. De'Aaron has had some big games. He's had some terrible games this year. I feel like he's had more of a spectrum of stats than he did last year. He's still averaging around that 27 4-4 mark or around that. But yeah, it really depends on, it's similar to the Lakers in the fact that who's going to step up and be that third star. We've seen Harrison Barnes even have big games this year. Malik Monk obviously is the prime suspect for that. But
yes, yesterday he suffered a sprained right MCL and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks.
Really?
He's going to be out for the plan.
That makes my point even more valid.
Yeah.
Because someone's going to have to step up and fill that third scoring option, even second, because Sabonis isn't the highest points per game average. You know, he's going to rebound, he's going to assist as a big man. But yeah, they really just need that scoring, especially now. Yeah, I didn't know that. Need to watch my Woj bombs. I
only found out this morning because obviously there were so many games yesterday that it was just lost amongst all the other parity in the league. But they just barely lost to the Mavs yesterday. And that was without Malik for pretty much the whole game. He only played 1 minute. They've got Kevin Huerter out. They've got Trey Lyles out for the moment. So with them back, it'll be interesting to see who they rely on more for scoring. We've seen Keon Ellis really step up since the injury of Kevin Huerter. He's played starter minutes. He's been averaging pretty good numbers. He had 16 yesterday. And who can it be? Could it be Keegan Murray?
It could. We've seen flashes. But I don't know, will it be?
He's a super threatening off-ball mover, spot-up shooter. And when we talk about the pace of the playoffs, when you're really running plays, you've got Sabonis facilitating in the paint as he does. Personally, I think it's going to be Keegan Murray because he's their most reliable shooter, and the Kings rely on shooting a lot. They rely on pace. They rely on off-ball movement, like we saw with the Golden State Warriors of recent. Obviously, with not as good shooters, but that's why I think Keegan Murray can really benefit from their style of play. So I would have Keegan Murray stepping up there. But other than that, I think an issue that they really need to improve on is their converting to a higher free throw percentage.
What's their free throw percentage?
They're last in the league.
Really?
Especially De'Aaron and Sabonis, who average 5 and 6 free throws a game, yet shoot 70% respectively.
Yeah, that's not great for your two
stars. And that's going to be so important when closing out games. I'm not sure. I didn't watch the game live yesterday when they only lost by 4. So I'm not sure if they took free throws or not. But anyway, when you miss so many, even throughout the course of a game, you're missing out on four free points that you could have gotten to potentially win a game, make it closer, make it a one-possession game where you can potentially shoot for the win. So for me, it's increasing that. And it's going to be harder because obviously playoff atmosphere, but hopefully they can improve somehow, some way.
Yeah, look, we're presenting improvements, but we are not NBA coaches. We don't know how to tangibly fix these problems. We're just presenting them. Anyway, we're moving on to the Phoenix Suns. This is interesting.
I've got fixed attitude.
That was part of mine. I said big 3 chemistry. I don't know exactly. I couldn't find it. I tried to look it up. How many games they've played together, all 3 of them this year. And yes, they've played more games together than some of the big 3s, quote unquote, Brooklyn big 3s of the I'm thinking of the Brooklyn Nets, but in the past. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, with big 3s, it's hard to get chemistry going. There's only rare instances where it really clicks. And 3 arguably ball dominant players. We saw this in Brooklyn. I don't know if it will work come playoff time, sharing possessions. And in addition to that, I have depth because obviously they went for that big 3 option, and that's good to have in terms of regular season, especially because you're going to win games either way. But depth, when their second unit comes in, yes, they've got good players, Okogie, good defender, etc., etc. But I don't know if they can contain the other secondary units in the West, especially.
Not contender caliber whatsoever.
No.
When they're paying their third guy $50 million, it's hard to give the rest of the roster decent contracts and fill out the spots that you really need. So
yeah, so it's interesting to look. Someone might have to look into Jimmy Harrell or someone. Yeah. Does the big 3 actually work? Yeah, it's an interesting point because you're sacrificing so much. Mate. Yeah.
Don't give it to Jimmy Harrell. You take the money for it.
I'll take it. Nah, and then the last thing I've got, Jokic problem. Nurkic cannot guard Jokic. If they come and get up against him in a playoff series, he's getting cooked. I mean, it's a problem for other teams on this list as well. That's why it's the third thing, because it's hard to really improve that. But Jokic is an offensive beast, and he's going to fully take advantage of Nurkic on that end.
With your big 3 chemistry thing, we've seen very ball dominant players not succeed, but I would give them the benefit of the doubt in that situation because obviously they've only been together for a year. Even if they don't succeed, they miss out on the playoffs entirely. I wouldn't blow it up. I wouldn't really have huge concerns. Not saying I would,
but I'm just saying in terms of these playoffs, it'd be interesting to see if that's an improvement they need to make.
Yeah. But on my point, fixed attitude, I would have lift in defensive tenacity because we've seen recently, especially against the Bucks, and then a couple days ago, I forgot who it was against. I watched the game, so I should really remember. but they just didn't look like they really wanted to compete. They had you guys had Giannis out when you played they played the Bucks, and I think they just took it as a sort of a break day. They were like, okay, we've got 3 of the best scorers in the league. Let's not sweat. We can produce enough offensively to make up for the defense that we're going to lack. Let's save energy on defense and just like score in bunches on offense. Then you've got Bobby Portis and Damian Lillard who come to play, and the rest of your team, really. They step up because of the absence of Giannis. So it just doesn't balance out, and the Suns just need to fix their attitude in that department, because you need to build championship pedigree, and you can't do that by not coming to compete. You win a championship by coming to compete, and they just don't do that. And then even on offense, careless offensive possessions. They average 15 turnovers a game, which is one of the worst in the league in terms of playoff contenders. And I think that is, again, due to careless passes. They know once a player has the ball in isolation, they might get a bucket. They're likely to get a bucket. But they're just careless on offense and defense. We saw against the Spurs the other day. That's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, they played the Spurs. They lost.
They had, I forgot who was the help defender, but they had Devin Vassell on the last possession, guarded by an okay defender. I forgot who exactly it was, but they went and doubled Devin Vassell, left Jeremy Sohan, who's not a great shooter by any means. I think that was his first 3 that he actually made in the game, and it ended up being a game winner. But they left him wide open, which is fine. You can help on defense. But the fact that they didn't run to go and contest him, they just gave up defensively, didn't turn their body to go and contest, didn't make any effort whatsoever to go and contest the final shot. That was a game that against the Spurs, they definitely should have won.
Oh, of course.
Even though the Spurs are hot at the moment, so we'll give them that. But still, they just need to improve their attitude. And I think, even though you say, okay, the stakes are higher in the playoffs, the play-in, they're going to step it up and they're going to become a better team because of it. They need to build that the whole point of the regular season, the end of the regular season for teams, is to test out different things for the playoffs and to build chemistry together for the playoffs so that they know what they're going to do coming playoffs. And you can't do that when you're not trying.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's at the level of, attitude, tenacity, and chemistry that it needs to be at of a contending playoff team. I don't think many view them as a contender at this point. So even with the big 3 that they have, we all obviously know the talent. Obviously, Kevin Durant is an older player now, but still going into the season, people were thinking, "Oh boy!" It's different because they got injured, the 2019 Warriors, even though they didn't win the championship. But going into the season, people were like, "Oh boy, this is big." Or the Brooklyn Big 3. Big 3s in general. But yeah, I don't know if it will work out for them, but we will see.
Like, I don't think they deserve it.
No.
They don't deserve to be in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Really?
They don't deserve it. Because we talk about every single other team that we've mentioned here. They all try their asses off. When you've got to contend for a play-in spot, we've seen the Rockets step it up. We've seen the Warriors 3-game win streak. You see Steph crying because Draymond is out. They care. The Suns don't care. They don't deserve it.
Well, they're going to be there either way.
No, they won't.
Yeah, in the playoffs.
The Suns?
Yeah.
Are they locked in?
No, but I'm saying that they're probably going to make it either way.
I don't know about that, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. What was I going to say? I was going to make a point about the Warriors. The Warriors, I give them a pass on their inconsistencies this year because it's been an extremely hard year. They had one of their assistant coaches die in the middle of the season. Rest in peace. They had Draymond Green out. They had so much drama surrounding him. They had Wiggins at the start of the year not coming to play because of obviously the stuff that was going on in his personal life. It's just been such an up and down season. Jonathan Kuminga out for games. So you really, in my opinion, you give them a pass and you say that they're a great team. Usually, I would probably say if they didn't have all this drama, they would be in a much better position than they are currently. So I don't think the Suns deserve it, even though maybe they probably will make it. But I
don't know. I'm looking back on it now, and they are in that 7 spot. So yeah, I still think they probably will make it. But again, it comes down to games, individual games, and if they're coming to play that particular night.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, moving on to the Mavericks. We're now the 6th seed. We've been talking about them the past couple of weeks when they were around 8 at that 8th spot. And I think, on a side note, Luka does have a shot at MVP now, in my opinion.
He's second now.
Yeah, well, that's on the NBA.com's rankings, but in my particular rankings,
how do you feel about that?
How do I feel?
Yeah. Obviously, Giannis is not in the top 3 anymore.
Bro, he should be top 3. He should be 3rd.
He's been averaging 31 and 12 in the last week, and he's dropped. How crazy is that?
That's how crazy the league is. And
it is.
Also, he's averaging like 65% shooting from the field, going insane. He had a 30 and 20 game the other day. Like, I don't know. It's hard for him to do much more, but I understand. This is a bit of a side tangent, but like Shea is a bit more narrative about him in terms of the Thunder being a really good and overachieving team this year. So I understand why he's there, but I'd have Giannis at the 3. Luka at the 2. We'll see how the Mavs go in the rest of the regular season because obviously the Nuggets have dropped down to 3 again. So it could be interesting. They're not even that far apart at this point in terms of actual seeding. But anyway, that's besides the point. I'm going off on a big tangent, wasting time.
I just want to say they've got the ability to be the 4th seed. And if they are the 4th seed, then it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
I reckon it's Luka then.
You reckon it's Luka? If they
get to the 4th seed.
Really?
Yeah.
I would still say Jokic because of advanced statistics. So
I'm not a big advanced stats. These ones. I'm not a big advanced stats guy. But if you're averaging 34 points a game and you've led your team from 8th, I think the narrative is there. I just think he will win it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Anyway, that's besides the point. The Mavericks, I have not relying on Kyrie to drop 25 plus to win. Because obviously Ramadan Kyrie has been going off lately. We've seen he's catching alley-oops. He's doing these crazy shots. But I feel like every time I see the Mavericks lose, especially in their losing stretch, it was because Kyrie didn't score 30 points a night, even though Luka was going off. We were talking about this. And so I feel like you can't rely, even though Kyrie is a big-time player and he probably will step up in the playoffs, you can't fully rely on that to win games. And yes, they made defensive additions, but, you know, PJ and Daniel Gafford aren't the highest scoring big men. So I feel like they just need to find more scoring in the fact that if Kyrie has an off night, they're still going to be able to get the win.
I agree with that. I've got another one, but I do agree with that. They've been hot the last few weeks. They've only lost to OKC in the last 11 games, including a win against the Nuggets, the best team in the West, which was, of course, that Kyrie left-hand game winner, which just
Crazy.
Insane. And I really like when we talk about the Nuggets against the Mavs, even though the Nuggets are such a good team and Jokic just dissects defenses, pretty much any defense in the league has rarely a chance against Jokic, especially with the big man matchup, because it's never quite, you just don't have a versatile enough big man to defend Jokic, and there is really no way to defend Jokic. But I think one of the best players that can do that in the league is rookie Derek Lively. The other day we saw it. We had 16 and 11 from Jokic, and Derek Lively kept him to 36% shooting, and you can't just say it was a Jokic off game. It was truly Derek Lively doing his thing.
I didn't watch.
I watched a Kenny Beecham video about it, so I know
It's pretty knowledgeable.
Kenny Beecham knows his stuff. So
but yeah, Derek Lively has been insane this year as a rookie, and yeah, if he's doing that type of thing on the defensive end, and you know they have Daniel Gafford as well as a defensive option, so it'd be interesting to see how Jokic matches up against them too. Of course, you can't just take from a one game sample size, especially if it's in a series come playoff time. But it'd be interesting.
I trust Derek Lively. I think he's a good all-around defender, and he's shown that this year. he's really underrated as a rookie. I don't know if his ceiling is all-star level, but I know that he can be an extremely he can be an extremely valuable piece for any team going into the future, even without spacing the floor. Obviously, we'll see how the game evolves, but he's still super effective as a pick and roll scorer, roll man, and as a defender. So that I feel like will continue to be important for teams going forward, at least as a bench role, something of the sort. But yeah, all comes down, in my opinion, I've talked about the good things, but it all comes down to PJ Washington's three-point shooting, especially catch and shoot shooting from the corner, because that's where he gets most of his shots. He shoots the highest volume of catch and shoot threes behind Tim Hardaway, and that's excluding Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, who haven't shot a three this season, which is 28%. He shoots 20. Sorry.
How many attempts per game?
He attempts, I think it was 6 catch and shoot shots per game, and Tim Hardaway had 6.4 or something. It was very close, but he only shoots 28%, which is the lowest amount based on players on the Mavs who have played 15 minutes and have attempted a three this season. So 28% from the corner, it's just not good. And when he shoots 6 a game on 28%, they need that to improve. And he'll be so integral for them in the playoffs, because obviously they'll want his defense. They can't lower his minutes because he's so important on that end. That they just need his offensive production,
more offensive output
to step up. And whether they use him differently, I don't know. Whether he'll be a dunker for them, obviously with Kyrie and Luka drawing so much attention, and especially when Kyrie drives, he draws a lot of doubles, and hopefully, whether they want PJ Washington to sit in the dunker spot and throw it down for them, or as an alley-oop threat. But I think they're more likely to have Gafford or Lively, who will pretty much be on for the entire game, either one of them, to be in that spot. So I really think his three-point shooting is super important.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with the new additions. We've seen that it's been working out. Obviously, they're on a 6-game win streak, but in playoff time, it's not a different game, but it's different in some aspects. So I want to see how they'll play as a team when the pace slows down a little bit. But next up, we have the Pelicans, and I'm really interested to see what you have to say about this one, because we've both been pretty high on the Pelicans going to this, especially as an underdog. Everyone loves an underdog. But I want to see what you have to say about their improvements.
I think as a young team, for them, it's growing in clutch situations. Because on the season, I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that they aren't a great clutch shooting team. And that's a lot of the time because shooters aren't hitting open shots, because obviously in late game situations, say you're down by 3 and you've got Zion having the ball. Obviously, we've got point Zion, and they don't play him very high at all. So they leave him pretty much open. And so you've got to find different ways to get three-point shooting, because obviously the way that they generate offense is mainly through Zion driving through the paint and then kicking out to shooters, because they need to obviously contain him. But I reckon they will have to rely more on CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram in late game situations off of screens from Zion, pick and roll. Obviously, Zion, one of the best roll men in the league. And it will just be shooting for them, because they need to improve in that regard. On Thursday night, they stepped up against the Bucks and shot really well in the clutch. They won 107-100.
Don't worry, I saw that one.
Yeah. And I just think that's the biggest factor for them, just improving. And we've seen it the other day, and they just need to continue that trend.
Yeah, that's pretty much similar to what I've got, but I've also got another point to add. But yeah, I just said continued trajectory, continued improvement.
Mm-hmm.
And Zion, obviously he's been going on a tear lately. But if the Pelicans are going to push further in the playoffs, we need to see 38 boards a night. 30 and 8 boards a night.
I was going to say, damn.
30 and 8 boards a night
Yeah.
from Zion, which is not the numbers he's averaging at the moment. He could do it. But I'm saying if they're going to take that next step, he needs to start averaging those type of numbers. And obviously he's very efficient, so we don't need to worry about that. But yeah, just I feel like if they're going to be a second round team, I don't view them as such currently. I just don't think in a playoff series they match up particularly well against a lot of the teams in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And who's their second playmaker?
Who's the second?
I'm making a joke. Have you seen the video of Rondo and Boogie?
You're going to have to remind me.
It's where he says Trey Murphy, and then Rondo's like, "You got it, cuz."
Was that recently in that podcast?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. I really want to watch. There were a lot
point.
of clips from that podcast. I got to watch it.
Yeah. Anyway, that was my point.
Mm.
That wasn't my actual point. I was just making a joke.
Yeah,
Didn't land, but yeah, my point was Zion needs to
Good one.
step up. But
Yeah. Where do you see their ceiling, the Pelicans, in the playoffs? Obviously, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but has it changed?
I don't really see them past the first round team, unfortunately. In my eyes, the West is stacked in terms of talent. I feel like they could. I was high on the Clippers, but now I'm not so much because of their recent form. So I could see them beating the Clippers, but I feel like that's the best case scenario, or to a team that comes out of the play-in. But I don't know. Anything could shake up in terms of the standings in the West currently. So it'll be interesting to see who they come up against. But if they come up against, the Mavericks, the Nuggets, the Thunder, the Timberwolves, it's whatever. It's wrapped.
The Pelicans, they're 12th offense in the league, and this goes to my next point about. Did I start? I started that one, so I'll let you go on to the Clippers, and I'll talk about this a little bit up later. So.
Yeah, right. So for the Clippers, I've got health / clutch, because we've seen them lose a lot of close games.
Mm-hmm.
And also another point which I just thought of before was, this is just a question, do they need like the primary scorer? They share the ball around, but do they need someone like Kawhi? Is it going to be Kawhi, or is it going to be Paul George, who's going to take the majority of shots during a night?
Personally, I think it's going to be Kawhi.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because it has been, as of recent at least.
Yeah, but I feel like I've seen a lot of games where, Paul George is 17, Kawhi has 19, and James Harden is like 16, and they lose. So I feel like someone needs to really take the reins. And also, with the clutch factor, they've lost a lot of close games that they should have won against inferior opponents. And addition to that, I've got the same problem as, who did I have that had it? As the Suns, Jokic. Zubats versus Jokic. It's going to be tough. Yes, Zubats is a good rebounding big. He's great on the offensive glass. But Jokic, that's all I have to say.
That's all you have to say. For the Clippers, for me, I'm going to go in line with you with clutch play, but in particular, clutch defense. Because they've been okay offensively in the clutch. And in theory, they should be a decent defensive team. Kawhi Leonard, Defensive Player of the Year. Paul George, all defensive teams throughout his career. But it's just switchability, because obviously teams these days play target ball, and so they target Norman Powell, they target the big man. Zubac can't defend a perimeter player. He just can't. So it's just clutch defense. And especially against good passing teams like the Kings, as I was saying before, even if they do get favorable matchups, they're not switchable in fast-paced offenses. Like when you've got the ball swinging around the court and you've got screens coming any direction, they're just not good at switching. And then, of course, teams will get the favorable matchup through that as well. So I just think just clutch defense. I don't know how they're going to fix it.
Somehow.
Well, I know I was looking at this earlier where they had certain lineups. They had their smaller big man lineup where they weren't running Zubaks in the final plays of the game. They had a small ball lineup that was actually okay defensively, because even when they did switch the best player onto whoever was on the center position, they could still defend them because they were small enough and versatile enough. But still, I just think they just somehow need to improve that defense, because I don't think it's going to get them very far in the playoffs.
No,
I don't think I'd put their ceiling right now. Conference finals, I'd say, is realistic for them. Maybe not likely, but realistic.
Yeah, it could happen. I don't see it happening though. I think they're around a second round team for me.
And even just throughout the game, we talk about clutch, but throughout the game, they're ranked.
Pull the stats up, brother.
They're ranked 17th in terms of defensive rating, which is just not good enough to be a competitive team. Even though they do have such a high octane offense. But it's going to be interesting when they move away from ISO ball in the playoffs to see how the offense will go, because they're one of the best ISO teams and they just rely on that so much. So that's another thing as well, just a little minor thing. But I think they'll work it out because they've got such good offensive veterans. And with Russell Westbrook back, I hope they'll add a bit more tenacity on defense as well. We did see it in the first game that they had back, but in the second game a couple of days ago when they had him, they were back to their old ways and they lost by 20 points or something of the sort. So it comes down to defense for me.
Yeah. And then moving on to a team that me and you both had making it to the NBA Finals, the Denver Nuggets, only seeing it at the third spot in the West. And it's hard to pick real improvements in their game. Obviously, every team can improve, but they're one of the best teams out there and a lot of people's picks to win the whole thing again. But I've got Jamal Murray health, because we've seen over the past couple games where they've been sliding that they need that point guard who can score and play make a bit to go alongside Jokic to really form the foundation of a winning team. I don't know who they versed. They lost to the Suns.
The T-Wolves. And the T-Wolves.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, both playoff playing opponents, but still, I think they're a much better team, obviously, with Jamal. And I think that's the main factor in them. They've got great chemistry as a team. We've seen that last year. Everyone plays their role to a high quality. So that's the only point I really had. It was hard for me to come up with one off the top of my head.
Me as well. Me too. I think for me, it is Aaron Gordon shooting. Because based on the volume that he shoots, which has decreased throughout the season as he's sort of realised that it's not a super important part of their offense, but I think it will be come playoffs. I keep mentioning the shortened rotations, but it really does matter because you've only got 2, possibly 3 players that play the power forward position on the Nuggets, or that will play the power forward position on the Nuggets. And so he's going to be involved in so many lineups, which means that he's going to be involved in shooting lineups when they need to catch up to teams, when they want to extend the different point differential on teams. So his 3-point shooting efficiency just needs to go up. He shot 1 for 3 the other day.
So next up we have the OKC Thunder. And I've got for them rebounding and second chance points, because they were very low on the list of second chance points allowed by the opponent, in as well as the Lakers, which I previously mentioned. And rebounding, they've only got a 48% rebound rate, which for a playoff team, especially come playoff time, might be crucial in winning or losing games. We know Chet isn't the most physical player, but it'd be nice for them to score some rebounds, especially on the offensive end, create second chance points for them and limit the opponents. But yeah, obviously a very good team, so it's hard to come up with something, but that's what I delved into the stats and found. What do you reckon, Matt?
Doing his research. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I didn't look as far into that as you. I have watched OKC games as of recent, and I can agree with that as well. He's a lighter body, easier to box out, even despite his length. So I think, that is crucial for them. Whether they can find rebounding through J-Dub, J-Will. You see how, I wonder how they'll run the rotations. I'm pretty sure it'd be very similar to how if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just more rebounding. Definitely agree with that. The T-Wolves, what do you got?
The Timberwolves. Again, a very good team. It's hard to come up with something that really was a flaw or needed improvement. Like, obviously, Ant's scoring is a bit inconsistent at times, but that's neither here nor there to their success as a team. I have Cat as an X factor written down because the team winning really depends on how well Cat plays as that second option. Ant's going to give you, 28 points a night on average.
Will he return?
I think he
when,
is.
I
don't know exactly
confirm
when.
it here.
But yeah, he's crucial for the T-Wolves' success. Great big man shooter, efficient. Just needs to play that team basketball.
The Wolves, they're still winning a lot of games without
They still
Cat.
are, yeah, but I feel like if they're going to go to that next level, make a deep playoff run, he's crucial in the offensive scheme.
I agree with you, but I think in the first round, even if they are, who are they matched up with in the first round? If we go by the 7th seed, who was the 7th seed in the
Suns.
West? The Suns. Yeah, that's tough. They did beat the Nuggets the other day, a full-powered Nuggets without Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards playing a really good game, and then defensively, as always, you've got Jaden McDaniels, you've got Rudy Gobert also playing really good games.
Yeah, best defensive team in the league.
And that brings me to what I think it's just overall offensive production. And that comes through Cat as well. So I'm sort of including that into the mix. But it is production from Anthony Edwards. We need him to become that 35 point per game scorer in the playoffs. He's got that dog in him, so I wonder
He could do it.
how that will how it will translate, whether he'll step his game up. Last year in the playoffs, he did step his game up. I think he averaged almost 31, whether it was 30 or 31 in the playoffs last year. Obviously, it wasn't enough to get past the Nuggets, but we just got to hope that the Timberwolves are an exceptional team this year. They've stepped up a level on all cylinders, and they just need that extra production from Anthony Edwards, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's similar to what I was talking about before about the Pelicans and Zion. Like, as a first option, both young players need to step up a little bit if their teams are going to make a deep playoff push. But yeah, I agree with what you said.
Very important for those young teams.
Yeah, not much more I want to add on that one. So do you want to move on to the East? The Eastern Conference. And going by the play-in, the first team we have is the Atlanta Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
And let's be honest, it's a bit of everything they need to improve on. I've got defense written down because their defensive woes have been apparent all season. Even when Trae Young has improved slightly, even though he's a terrible defender, he's improved. But the team just hasn't improved in general. Like, the defensive schemes are just not that good. The effort is not there on that end of the court. And you can really see it does affect the team's winning percentage. Yeah.
The thing is, without Trae Young, in their last week or so without Trae Young, they've won so many really, really tough games. I believe they beat the Celtics the other day.
They did. They have the Celtics number.
They have the Celtics number, and that is all in part to DeJounte Murray. He's got a +6 net score without Trae Young. And when they're together, they've got a negative net score. So they're losing when they're both on the court together, and that brings me to my point. I don't know what the heck they're going to do on offense with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, because as bad as they are on defense, they still need to make up for that on offense, which they have done over the past couple of weeks since Trae's been out. But it'll just, much like the Houston Rockets, you've got the Atlanta Hawks playing well without what most people would say is their first option. So
they're in a very similar boat, and I think defensively they'll suffer with Trae Young, and offensively they'll suffer a little bit with Trae Young. And to be honest, in the offseason, I think there will be definitely moves made in terms of I think the backcourt next year will look completely different. Whether it's Trae Young, whether it's DeJounte Murray, and I think Hawks fans for the most part are sort of happy with just keeping DeJounte Murray throughout the offseason, continue with him next year. But with that, you got to hope that they improve next year. Otherwise, that's going to be a crucial GM mistake. And we've seen with GMs, often they get fired. They don't get re-employed because they've made a crucial mistake, and they can't, teams can't risk that happening again. So we'll see. We'll see. I think the Hawks, it's offense and defense. I think the Hawks are screwed this year in the play-in.
Yeah, look, I don't think there's a high chance that they make it through. They could possibly steal a game, but I just don't see them making it out of the play-in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on to another team which is in a similar boat in terms of being a bit mediocre this year, but still finding themselves in a play-in spot, and that is the Chicago Bulls.
Chicago. And
for them, I have everything / relying on DeMar and defense. Pretty much
everything.
That's what I had written down. I thought I was being funny when I wrote these notes.
You are. That made me laugh. So.
But yeah, look, there's a lot of things. The inconsistency of the team. Yeah, not relying on DeMar, an older player, to lead your production. I know they've got Kobe White improved this year, who I've been high on, and they've got, AO has his moments, but I just don't think the production is there to be a true playoff team. And just the inconsistency. You see them, even as we're recording this, they were up against the T-Wolves by 15 points. They're down by 3 now.
Mm-hmm.
That just can't happen. And it happens on a regular basis to this team.
Yeah. They don't have a true facilitator. They're just missing gaps in defense, big man defense. Their scoring production is weird because you've got DeMar, who operates in the mid-range. Kobe White is probably the best player on the team this year. Most improved candidate, even though in the last couple of weeks he's had some off games, shooting 40-odd% from the field. But yeah, I think there are just big gaps in their team entirely. I think a big factor is rebounding and interior defense with Vucevic, who is a pretty shocking interior defender. And they just got to hope that Kobe White picks it up as well. Back to the form that he was sort of in the mid-season, where he was scoring 30 points per game in the absence of Zach LaVine. So if I could pick one that I wanted them to improve on, I would probably go... I'd go interior defense. Because when you match up against... teams like the Hawks, they're not super inside dominant. They do shoot a lot of threes. They've got a lot of shooters on that team, but it's not really a matter of that because when we go into the playoffs, there are such big dominant front courts, and Vucevic I don't think he's going to hold up very well in terms of that. And you've got Pat Williams, who's a good defender, but underwhelming when we talk about what he was projected to become. So I think I'm going to go with interior defense, just picking that up however they do it. A lot of these, when we talk about them, are sort of, we wish that they would be able to do this. We don't have a plan for them to do this.
No.
Because
I'm sure the people who get paid millions of dollars that work at the franchise are trying to figure out how to do this.
And whether it's just removing those pieces in the offseason, it might be as simple as that, because Vucevic, I don't really think he has a hope in terms of becoming a better interior defender. He's already 30-something years old. So
yeah, I don't.
You got to sort of move past those players if you're going to move forward. But I think the Bulls are in a very difficult situation at the moment, money-wise as well. So they should have traded Zach LaVine.
In terms of everything, yeah, they're not at the point of... They're in just limbo. They're just in the middle of being a team that's in the play-in, but you're not really making it past that at all. So it's tough.
Yeah.
Shout out the Bulls fans out there. Hang in there.
Yeah, hang in there. We're hoping for your success.
And next up, we've got your 76ers, mate, and I'm really interested to see what you have to say about this.
Yeah. So obviously Embiid out. He's hopeful to come back before the end of the regular season. I think the projections were that he would be there around the 10th of April, sort of, the last couple games of the regular season. But when we talk about Joel Embiid in the playoffs, whether it's beneficial for him to actually play.
Ooh.
Because Paul Reed has stepped up.
And you're saying Paul Reed's better than Joel Embiid?
He's not better than Joel Embiid, right? But he is better in the playoffs. I'll just say that. Paul Reed is better in the playoffs. His production has been great in the recent games. I think he's plus minus for the team, even though we're about 500 team. It's plus, I know that. And he's just, in history, has been more impactful than Joel Embiid come playoff time.
I'm going to have to look at the stats, but I'm high on Paul Reed as well. I think he can really make an offensive impact as well as being great on the defensive end of the ball, especially if the 76ers make it through to the playoffs.
A pick and roll partner with Tyrese Maxey. He can shoot the lights out. B-ball Paul. That's why they call him B-ball Paul. When he's on, he's one of the best basketball players in the world. And really...
He's got the keys to the city.
He's got the keys to the city. And I just trust him with the ball in our hands. And when it comes to late game as well, we've seen him in the past in playoffs as well. Because he's usually the four-man, runs next to Joel Embiid. But honestly... Tobias Harris is more fit for the four-man, and I think Paul Reed five-man. Just sit Embiid for most of the game. Maybe some late minutes when the Sixers are down or up by margin. So,
oh yeah, I can't take this seriously.
April Fools, motherfuckers.
April Fools. Yeah, look, I knew where you were going as soon as you started, but
bro,
yeah,
I wish I could contain my smile a bit more because. I don't like talking bullshit. I don't like talking bullshit, and I'm not a good liar for the most part. So.
Well, shout out anyone that got fooled by that. Thought we were casuals.
No, my serious take for the Sixers, I've got written down clutch shooting and Tobias Harris. I feel like you and I might both agree because Tobias Harris without Joel Embiid, I don't think we'll get the same Joel Embiid. He might be 80%, but I don't think he's going to be that MVP form that we saw him at the start of the season. But I really just hope that he comes prepared for the playoffs. But if not, and he needs to take a bit of a backseat, not so much a backseat, but needs to rely more on our role players or Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris. We just need Tobias Harris to pick up his shooting. He's not great. He gets to these spots on offense that just aren't high percentage shots. He likes to pull up from the mid-range, come off screens, shoot mid-range shots, and more often than not, he's just not efficient enough to sort of run the offense, run the second unit when you've got Maxey, and hopefully you don't have Maxey and Joel off at the same time, but if you do, you never know how Joel Embiid's injury is going to go. So we just need him to shoot better. And also we've lost a lot of really close games since the absence of Joel Embiid. And I'm just talking hypothetically because we obviously don't know whether Joel Embiid's back. I've said this so many times in the last minute, but hypothetically, if he's not in form, then we just need to increase our clutch shooting percentage because that's really important come playoffs. And I feel like Sixers are going to be in a lot of close games when they're actually playing well because at the moment they're either losing or in really close games. So I just really hope that that's the case. And whether it's Tobias Harris closing the game, God forbid, or Tyrese Maxey, which I'd much rather prefer. But yeah, that's my take on the Sixers.
Yeah, I agree in terms of the fact that I said shooting efficiency was the main one that I had down. Yeah, and Tobias Harris / chemistry with your new pieces and Joel coming back. I think it'll be interesting to see how, players like Cam Payne and Kyle Lowry fit into the rotation fully. But Yeah. With Joel back, obviously you've got a good chance of beating pretty much anyone or putting up a fight against anyone, even though he's might not be or probably won't be 100%. But yeah, I feel like the shooting efficiency and just really clicking as a team is what needs to happen to Philly for them to put up a good shot against the Bucks, probably, at this point.
Very tough first round matchup.
It would be.
Not looking forward to that. But with Joel Embiid back, I would give us a chance. So next up,
we have the Heatles. And I just have not relying on playoff Butler because we've seen, obviously, Jimmy steps up in the big time when it gets to the playoffs. We've seen that year in, year out, but I don't think Miami can depend on that. We know his average is definitely going to go up. He's going to take more shots per game. But I don't know if the cast surrounding him this year are as, I don't know what's the word, as deep. You know, the players step up when it comes to playoff time. And we might see that again. I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think they can rely too heavily on Jimmy to carry the load. I guess the East isn't as strong as it has been, but I still feel like, you know, he's gotten older. I feel like his regular season numbers, even though he does step up, haven't been as good as they have been. So I feel like it's really up in the air for the Heat at the moment.
yeah, to back what you said about them not looking quite the same, I know what you're saying because they didn't make a lot of moves in the offseason with their shooters, Max Strus. So, yeah, they don't have any... Like they've got a very young team at the moment, and I think they don't have the experience that they had in previous years where they made deep playoff pushes. So, sort of, as a part of what you were saying, I'm going to say like we just need Jimmy to step up because Jimmy, I'll pull up the numbers now, but I know he's shooting pretty much almost a career low in terms of points per game. He's averaging... Oh, no, that's actually increased since last time I saw it. He was averaging 19 a couple weeks ago. Now he's averaging 21, which isn't terrible, but you still need him to pick up as your best player. You know he's going to play make. He's going to find Bam in his spots. And that's another thing. You need Bam to step up as well, but I'm going to have my point as Jimmy stepping up because we need playoff Jimmy this playoffs for them to even make it out of the play-in. So, I mean, we've seen flashes from Jimmy, not super recently, but he did have a 30-point game a bit over a week ago. He's had 23-point games. He had a 37-point game about 3 weeks ago against Utah. So, it's just whether he decides to... I mean, by this point of the season, I would have assumed that he would pick it up already.
Yeah.
To secure a playoff spot.
You usually start to see flashes of him becoming playoff Butler, but it really hasn't happened so far this year, and it's getting pretty close to playoff time.
Yeah, bit confusing. So just got to hope that he ramps up, and that's all I've really got to say.
Yeah, and next up we've got a bit of an interesting one as well, and that's the Indiana Pacers. Mm-hmm. And for them, I've got defense, obviously a major talking point, / Tyrese consistency / adjusting to playoffs. Adjusting to the pace more, I should say, because obviously they're the fastest team in the NBA. Their offense, they score a lot on the fast break. Mm-hmm. And I think in the playoffs, when the pace is slowed down, they might struggle. And also on the defensive end against powerhouse teams, I feel like they'll struggle. Obviously, they've probably got a good matchup against the Bucks. Bit of history there. But apart from that, I feel like they'll struggle against good opposition in the East.
I mean, my point is that I think they need to improve defensively. We saw against the Lakers just recently. We saw against the Clippers just recently. They did turn up defensively, and that's really what got them over the line because when they're such a high-octane offensive team and they come on defense, it's just huge for them, and I don't think they're going to lose games if they actually bring it on the defensive end. And then again, just a smaller point is... sorry, I'm talking like mainly perimeter defense because you've got Miles Turner at the big, and then Pascal, who when they traded for him, they knew he was going to supply a bit better forward defense as well. So like with his length and everything. So on offense, we also need Tyrese Halliburton to step up. He is starting to ramp it back up because since his injury, obviously he's had a few shocking games. We've spoken about this in the past. But he's ramping it back up. The Pacers are winning really important games.
Yeah, we saw that against the Lakers the other day.
Yep. Who are a good team. The Clippers are a good team. Usually, we have spoken about it this podcast that they're sort of falling off a little cliff at the moment, but they beat the Warriors, super good offensive team, Cleveland Cavaliers. So I think if Tyrese can keep up this production, then they have a chance to make a little push in the playoffs. And next, we have
Orlando Magic. Orlando Magic. Yes, sir. A team I'm excited to see what will happen with them. But what I've got written down is production. We saw the other day they won a game. I can't remember who it was against. But they won with no one scoring over 15 points. And that may be able to happen in the regular season. But I think during the postseason, we're going to see someone step up and take the reins, whether that be Franz, whether that be Paolo, someone taking the offensive load. And also, I've got 3-point efficiency because they were pretty low from memory when I was checking out these stats. And also turnovers. They're very high on turnovers and taking care of the ball, which in playoffs is crucial.
Yeah, I think this is really just a huge chance for Paolo to sort of prove who he is in the league, whether he can be a playoff threat. Obviously, we see players play really well in the regular season and then fall off in the playoffs. And they're sort of not respected as much as players who can turn it up in the playoffs. Even though Joel Embiid is a better player than Jason Tatum, a lot of people have a lot of... That isn't even an
April
argument.
Fools. Nah.
No, Jason Tatum is respected league-wide for making deep playoff pushes. People attributed that to Kyrie Irving and the star power that Jason Tatum had around him during his first few years in the league, but he's really proven himself as the leader of the team. And so that's an opportunity for Paolo to really improve, to prove himself in the league. And then Franz as well, and the Orlando Magic as a strong side as well, whether they can be taken seriously going into the future. And then turnovers, as you said, I think Jalen Suggs, as hard as he plays already, I think it's going to be crucial in the playoffs. And whether the players can feed off that energy as well and really bring a bit of tenacity. But they have a really tenacious team. I mean, they've got Joe Ingles, who's tenacious, almost as tenacious as you can get.
We saw him break Russell Westbrook's ankles the other day.
Yeah. Should have rocked the baby on him. That would have been cold. Yeah, I just hope they bring some tenacity, and I think that's where Orlando will win games.
Yeah, obviously they've got some great young players, and this playoff run could set them up for years to come in terms of success, getting that experience and building from that. But yeah, it really comes down to who's going to take the reins. I think it will be Paolo. Also, Franz is a better playmaker and general handler of the ball. So it'll be interesting to see what they do come playoff time, and interesting to see who they'll come up against, because I think that's really important for the Magic. If they come up against someone like the Knicks, I feel like that's not a good matchup for them at all. I feel like someone like the Pacers would be more suited towards them.
And shout out Markel Fultz as well, because he's been one of my favorite players for years, and he's really he's providing a lot of production for them on offense as the backup point guard. So
he's been your phone background for how long now?
Since he was almost traded to Orlando, because I thought he might become an all-star one day. Maybe there's still hope. Maybe there's still hope. I wouldn't even call him he's a bust for being the number one overall pick, but he still provides value on a playoff team. So how much of a bust can you really be?
Next up, we've got the New York Knicks. And
the Knickerbockers.
You go first on this one. Because
the New York Knicks, you see, it's interesting because I really love them as a team. I think OG is going to bring it. Obviously, he was injured for the last little part of the season, but he's back now, and he's starting to really pick things up for them. And as we speak, they're beating... Oh, sorry. No, my phone just refreshed, and they're losing to the OKC Thunder.
Wow, they were up before.
Yeah, they're only down by 4 points, and that's to really one of the best teams in the league. And I mean, they've had some really big wins recently. They've had beating not really tough wins, but they beat the Toronto Raptors by 44 points. But with Julius Randle back, hoping that he's back, I think he will be back. It's really tough to really point out a spot where I think they should really improve. Maybe consistency with three-point shooting, and Randall coming back in form. Maybe that's one. But I really like them, but I don't think there's anything they can really do to push past a team like the Celtics, because I don't think they just have the assets to do that. I mean, if everyone shoots really well, then that's something you could say. But as a team, as a well-constructed team, I just think that's just going to be the issue. They're a bit undersized in some matchups. So, yeah, it's all sort of lineup-based stuff. I wouldn't say it's particularly improving on something that they're not already doing well.
Yeah, I've got written down health, obviously a major factor with Julius Randle.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does, I think, is he coming back?
Hope. I don't think they've released any statements.
Yeah, well,
so
anyway, if he does come back, I've got sharing the offensive load between Randle and Brunson. Because we saw even yesterday, day before, when they played the Knicks and Jalen Brunson had 61 points and they still lost against the Spurs. Mind you, Wemby did go off, but Jalen Brunson had to shoot 47 shots in that game. And I think it's important that they share the offensive load between their two stars. If he does come back, that is. They can still win games behind just Jalen Brunson, but I feel like they're most effective when that combo is in. And also, I've got shooting and efficiency from their role players. You know, your Josh Harts, your Miles McBrides. Because we see when those players have efficient nights, it's not even if they shoot a lot. If they have efficient nights, they're rebounding, they're passing. Josh Hart's a prime example. He can get like a triple-double because he's such a great player and he does the small things as well.
He does everything so well except for shooting. So
exactly. So I think it comes down to if those players can get their shooting numbers up, the Knicks will look very dangerous going to the playoffs.
I agree fully on the shooting aspect, but I think even Josh Hart, even if he doesn't come, obviously it will be a huge benefit if he does come to play, if he does shoot well. But honestly, he does so many things well. He rebounds for them. He playmakes for them. He dives on the floor, leaves skin on the floor. So I think even if he doesn't come to shoot, I think he's going to be extremely impactful for them regardless. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Alec Burks had recently come back from an injury just a couple of days ago. And Julius Randle is predicted to come back on April the 5th. So we will see him in the playoffs. Nice. Very, very important for the New York Knicks. So that's really all I've got to say about them. Next, we've got the 3 seed.
And that currently is
the
Cleveland
Cavaliers. What you got?
This was probably one of the hardest. Like, I went through all these lists and a lot of, because we watch NBA, a lot of the teams, they come to you straight away like, oh, this team needs defense, this team needs this, blah, blah, blah. But I kind of had to think about what Cleveland's problems are because they're not winning games at the moment. Obviously, Donovan has just come back. But I've got the size differential. I don't know how they can improve this, to be honest. The size differential in their backcourt with Darius and Donovan. Also sharing the offensive load again between those two and not just forcing Donovan to take 1 million shots per game. Obviously, he's the number one scorer and he's going to take the most shots, but not fully rely on that. And also the front court scoring, because it's kind of a mismatch in the fact that their backcourt is really good offensively, undersized, and not good defensively. Their backcourt, really good defensively, not good offensively. So I think it's about finding that balance for them.
Yeah, for me, it's just obviously has been injured, but Donovan Mitchell has not played well as of recent. He shot pretty horrifically in the last few games. He shot 20% just yesterday against Denver, which is when you're going up a playoff caliber team, you really need to shoot well, and a good defensive team as well. And in his first game back, he only scored 12 points. But hopefully those woes will disappear, and I'm sure they will. But even before his nasal fracture, he had a couple games after his left knee got injured, and he only had 14-13 due to poor shooting. So it's really, for me, it's whether Donovan Mitchell can return to form quick enough for them to figure it out and get into the form that they were, as we were talking about midway through the season. They were so strong, and I think I said something along the lines of they look like one of the best teams in the East, which I still agree with. But I think they, as you said, they do everything else really well. They've got Karis LeVert, who used to be really a pure scorer. He'd come off the bench, just provide buckets for the Brooklyn Nets. And early days in the Cleveland Cavaliers, when he was on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Well, he still is, but now he's really improving on other aspects. Defense, especially. Playmaking is becoming a better playmaker.
He's a great playmaker. He's on my fantasy, so yeah, I see the stats.
He racks them up. And then Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, even though you can't rely on them every single night to score efficiently because they haven't had the ball in their hands as much as Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. But recently, since Donovan Mitchell's been out and had his woes, they have stepped it up. Today, I don't have the exact numbers right here, but I'll talk about the game before. He had 23 points on 90% shooting. This is Evan Mobley. And then Jarrett Allen had 19 on 60% shooting. So they're really, really good at the moment, their front court. And they played against, they are playing against the Mavs as we know that. Sorry, they're not. Where did I see this? Sorry.
They lost today.
Yeah. Sorry. No, that's what I'm talking about. The Nuggets game today. So yeah, it's just, can Donovan Mitchell build back to the player he was and the team build back to the way they were? With Darius in form now, I don't think those two were in form at the same time throughout many portions of this season. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can all play really well and as well as they can to win the first round, second round. Be interesting. Yeah,
it's all about balance for them, in my opinion. And next up we have, let me take the floor for this, the Bucks.
Go ahead.
There's been a lot of issues this season. Obviously, we've got a great starting lineup. We've got Dame and Giannis, so realistically, we definitely have a chance of making a deep playoff push. But obviously, defense. It has gotten a lot better since Doc Rivers has stepped in, but it's about the tenacity on defense. And also the addition of Pat Bev has really helped this. Obviously, he's yelling at everyone on the floor. And our defensive rating has gone up. But I've got defense/want, just the attitude. Just need to see a bit more firepower, a bit more fight. And I think that will happen come playoff time, and I hope it does. And also, I've got someone other than Giannis rocking up, because we know Giannis, he's been super consistent this year, shooting so efficiently. I think the last week he averaged 31 and 18 rebounds.
And he dropped in
MVP standings, which, you can argue here or there about it. I'm biased as a Bucks fan, but it's pretty sad to see him drop. But he's been so consistent in the fact that win or lose, he's going to put up those numbers and help the team. But the determining factor on if we win or not comes from, is Dame going to shoot efficiently? Is he going to score over 25 points? Can someone else, can Bobby Portis make an impact? Can Brook make an impact? Can even Chris Middleton, as he's coming back, he's playing a lot better recently. Yeah. So I hope that continues going to the playoffs. I think that's really crucial. And it's really about Dame in the fact that, because of the 1-2 punch, he needs to step up come playoff time and show why this could and should be such a lethal duo in the league.
Yep. For me, I've watched a couple Bucks games recently, and I know I've heard other people talk about this as well. The Dame Giannis high pick and roll, they've started using it more later in the season, and it's very efficient.
It is.
It wasn't as good when they were starting it, obviously it's hard when you adjust to a new team, when you figure out spacing, when you figure out offensive lineups, whatever. But they've started to really figure it out, and I think that is crucial because they're almost unstoppable when you've got Dame shooting well. You've got Giannis is just going to be dominant, as you said. But when you've got them in the pick and roll, there's just no team that can contest that. One of them's going to be open when you get to the end of the play. So if they can bring that, if they can bring Dame's shooting, or if Dame can bring his shooting, then I see the Bucks really, really good.
Yeah, obviously we definitely have a chance of making a deep playoff push. It is about that efficiency because we haven't seen Dame shooting as well as he has done in previous years for whatever reason. But yeah, I hope he steps it up as a fan, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And if he does, then I back us against nearly any team going into maybe not the Celtics, but
maybe
playing well against the Celtics.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got a little question for you. Do you obviously Doc Rivers not coaching record wise, he's not as good as Adrian Griffin was at the start of the season. He's above 500 definitely, but nowhere near. I think Adrian Griffin, they won about 80% of their games when he was coaching. They'd only lost 13 games or something
It was
by the time. 30 and 13.
Yeah, 30 and 13, I think.
Do you regret them making that movement, or do you think he was good? Because you could contribute the start of the season defensive woes, offensive woes. You can contribute to that. Sorry, my brain is moving faster than my mouth. You can contribute that to Damian Lillard adjusting to a new team, teammates adjusting to him.
But I don't think that was the reason that we were so bad defensively early in the season. And we talked about it at the time.
Yeah.
This shows how old the podcast is now. We were talking about this at the time when it happened. But in retrospect, we have gotten better defensively because it was more about the willingness to defend, and the schemes that were designed by Adrian Griffin. And that's nothing against him. He was a good coach, obviously. And he deserves another job in the NBA, I believe. But getting Doc Rivers in, a veteran coach, implemented better defense, and with the pickup of Pat Bev, like I was saying before, that's really improved the locker room mentality surrounding defense and the want and the need to defend. As a team that's been so successful in recent years, being a top defense under Mike Budenholzer.
Veteran coach.
So yeah, I feel like in retrospect, I agree with the move made, but I'm not 100% like happy with it. But like, it makes sense.
Was it an investment? Was it sort of come playoff time, you think Doc Rivers will be better as a coach than Adrian Griffin?
In experience, yes, but I hope we don't blow any leads. That's all I have to say, because he does have a knack for doing that.
Exactly. Hopefully Adrian Griffin gets another job because I think he deserves it. He has a better record, as I said, than Doc Rivers this season.
Than nearly any coach.
And yeah, exactly. Any coach. Almost in history as well. Actually, in history, probably.
Probably. It's him or...
That's the greatest start a coach
who was coaching before Ty Lue, the
Cavs, yeah. But that's what we've got. I mean, I don't have anything else to say about the Bucks. I think you covered it.
Yeah, trust me, I've thought about that one a lot.
Yeah. Every day.
The last team we have, obviously the number one seed in the East, is the Celtics. Another team I found it hard to think of what they have to improve on, really, but I have Jason Tatum clutch. That's what I have written down, because we've seen it in past years in playoff series. Jason Tatum, I don't know what the stats say. I see TikToks like, oh, this is why Jason Tatum is a clutch player. This is why he isn't. Delving into it. And I'm not a big stats man, as you guys would know by now. But the Celtics need Jason Tatum to step up when it's in the clutch. We've seen them lose close games, like to the Hawks the other day, like to the Nuggets not that long ago. And in the playoffs, they're going to have to win those games. Obviously, they're the best team in the NBA. So it's hard to find something for them to really improve on. They're such a well-rounded defensive and three-point shooting team. And obviously their shooting is going to have to stay at that high level come playoff time. But I really think it rides on the back of Jason Tatum, the success of the Celtics.
Yeah, I've spoken about this in recent weeks, about how Celtics, they often, like later in the season, They've gone back to scoring more inside, finding post opportunities for Porzingis. Tatum not doing as much 3-point shooting, not doing as many of those pull-up jump shots from the top of the free throw line, which he was quite inefficient with. And they've just gone more to the inside, and that's how they've been gaining their advantage when you talk about the second quarter, the third quarter. But often in close games, they go back to the three because that's what they're so used to. They did it the whole start of the season. But when you talk about the playoffs, you wonder whether it's more beneficial for them to hopefully just... They get their leads from playing on the inside. So whether it's not relying so much on 3-point shooting, they're by far they shoot the highest volume out of any team. I think it's like 60 3-point shots a game or something crazy like that. I might have over-exaggerated, but it's high. So I think it'd be just not relying on the three come crunch time, because you've got so many threats on offense, and if you can be as unpredictable as possible, I think that's where you're going to win. Obviously, I'm not an NBA player. I don't know what goes through NBA players' heads on defense, but when you know that the Celtics are the highest volume 3-point shooting team in the league, you would be closing off. You'd be playing high. You'd be closing off shooting options. But then again, they do threaten you by driving, and it can happen at any point. So, but I would still stick with them not shooting as many 3-pointers come clutch time, because I think that percentage will go up as well come clutch time.
We've seen that in the games that they have lost, especially the close games. Like you said, when they are in the threat, they resort to the 3-point shooting as their main means of scoring, and they live or die by that.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Exactly, which in close playoff games, you'd really want to make it a certainty of, you're going to get to the line or you're going to score on a high efficiency shot.
Yeah, you just simplified what I was trying to say. Thank you.
No, that's all right. Just recapping.
Yeah, that's all I've got to say about them, because otherwise, on all cylinders, they're the best team in the league.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Just against the Nuggets.
That's one of my favorite. Two in the chip.
Yeah. Nuggets was mine, but we got to remember that as well. We got to. I wonder.
It's immortalized.
Maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll do another little bracket. We made one a couple of weeks ago, but maybe if we want to make some adjustments, whether we've got some rises,
when
some
the actual
fallers,
playoffs when the
set in
actual
stone.
series,
Yeah.
and then we'll review that once the playoffs are over and see how right or wrong we are.
It's so interesting. Our own little bracket, mate.
It will be very interesting. But yeah, that concludes the main segment of this pod, and that's all the playoff teams' biggest flaws / improvements they need to make heading into the playoffs, which starts very soon. So it's exciting times as an NBA fan.
Let us know if you agree or disagree as well, because we make these takes and obviously they're up for interpretation.
No, they're 100% right. They're always right. Now, obviously, if you're a fan of the team that we talked about, you'll probably know more about the situation in that franchise than we do. But
yeah, we can't get around to watching every single game, so
no,
we rely on
I
stats.
haven't bought League Pass yet.
Yeah, no.
Coming soon.
We got to chip in. We got to buy one together.
We do, actually.
Do you want to...
Got a few games now. I think I'll do mine first because my phone's on 2%, so it's about to die.
Yeah.
And it's a really interesting one, and it's also a hard one. So I don't think you're not going to get all of them. There's probably a couple names that you won't know or you've just heard of. Can you name the top 10 worst playoff performers of all time in terms of what their career averages are in the regular season versus the playoffs? I thought it was very interesting.
Top 10?
Talking about playoffs. Top 10.
This is going to be tough because...
It's going to be tough. I'll give you hints.
I've got no jersey. I've got no clues to go by. I just need to think about it. So, first of all, it's fresh on my mind.
I will... Okay,
Joel Embiid.
Joel Embiid is not on there.
Okay.
I will say, I don't know when this list was made, but there is one current player on there.
Only one?
Only one current player. There are there's an all-time great on here. 2 all-time greats.
So this is point differential.
One who I don't like.
This is point differential.
Not just point differential. It takes into account, increased turnovers and rebounds in the
Where did you find this?
It is on... Wait, let me bring it up. I had it up before. Bleacher Report.
Oh, okay.
It was 2018. So maybe
2018,
not...
okay.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard?
No. The one current player is not You could have said he's been an all-star, but he's not now. And it's someone you wouldn't think. It's really interesting.
Al Horford.
No.
Paul
Not
Millsap.
Alfred.
He's not
No.
current. I'm going to
And
need a clue for this current
Yeah.
guy, I reckon.
Peachy.
Kyle Lowry.
It's Kyle Lowry, number 3.
Kyle Lowry.
That's so
It's
interesting.
weird. I mean, that was before he won the chip. So
It was, but still, I would never have thought of him as a player who struggled to come playoff.
yeah,
time.
it never gets mentioned when you talk about Kyle
No,
Lowry.
it doesn't.
So
And
the rest of them are not
current, but
Wow.
there are 2 top
recently
15
retired?
players of all time
2 top 15. Okay.
on there,
Top
or
15.
top 20.
Okay.
Could argue.
Not Michael Jordan. Not Kobe Bryant.
None of them you would consider top 10. They're in that
Oh, okay.
10 to 20, 25-ish range.
Tim Duncan.
No, but close.
Close. Manu.
No.
Tony.
No.
Kawhi. No.
No.
Current. Close. Dirk.
No. That franchise that you said before.
Oh, okay. He was an all-star?
All-time great.
All-time great from the Spurs. David Robinson.
That is
Okay.
correct. David Robinson at
A choker. Wow.
number 7. Even though he did win a lot of chips, just wasn't as impactful come playoff time.
Interesting. I wish I had some sort of clue because I've got no direction to go in. Obviously, I
Yeah.
didn't watch any of these players.
One of them no one likes.
History, no one likes.
No one likes them.
No one likes them. Oh, easy. Karl Malone.
Karl Malone at number
Creepy
4.
Karl.
Creepy Karl. That probably contributes to the fact that he's never won a ring.
Yeah.
He wasn't
Drama.
as big in the big games.
Yeah.
And number 10 is a player. Oh, I'm trying to give you the same hint because he's been in one of these quizzes before. I'm trying to think of the same hint that I gave you.
Is it in the Dunker quiz?
Yes.
Dr. J,
No. You're on the right
Spud
line.
Webb.
You're on the
No.
right line.
Sixers.
No, not Sixers.
Hmm.
He's a highlight machine.
Afro.
Highlight machine.
Dominique. I
Dominique.
didn't fumble this time.
Number 10. So find this so interesting. I didn't read deep into the article, but his stats were nearly identical, but he just turned over the ball a lot more.
It was just based on turnovers.
Pretty much.
Wow.
It's yeah, but the number 1 you still haven't got yet.
Can you give me eras? Just really
Number 1, 2000s.
2000s. And then give me.
He averaged 7 less points in the playoffs.
Can you give me his
Pretty sure
regular
it was an
season
all-star.
averages? Do you have that?
Yeah, 19.3 points, 3 rebounds, 8 assists.
8 assists.
And I'm pretty sure it was an all-star. I'm not going to confirm that, but he was
okay, well,
borderline that level.
The glove.
Had his own shoe.
Hardaway? No.
No.
T-Mac? No.
One of Flight Reacts' favourite players of all
All
time.
Latrell Sprewell?
No.
No, because he doesn't get assists.
He's like along those lines. When I think of Latrell Sprewell, I think of this player, an edgy player. Just going to give it. Head tat.
Head tat. A tattoo on his head.
Yeah.
A tattoo. I can't think of a player with a tattoo on their head.
I don't know what. Played for the Knicks. Among other teams. But most known for on the Knicks.
Most known for on the Knicks.
He has his logo tattooed on his head.
Oh my god.
You know it.
I do. It's just the name.
You can't
not
think of the
coming to
name.
my head. Give me the first letter of his first name.
S.
Steve Francis.
No. So close. You're so close.
Steve.
It's not Steve, but it's that's the start.
Stephen
of it.
Marbury.
That's it. Stephen
Oh.
Marbury.
I should have gotten that so long ago.
He averaged 7 less points in the playoffs than the regular season.
Wow.
Really dropped off.
Knicks
Look,
didn't win a chip. So.
The next ones are pretty hard. I feel like you're not going to get 2 or 3 of them.
Are there like non-all-stars there?
Yeah. But 2 of them you should get. Number 6, a Bulls all-time great. But older Bulls. Not
Kukoc.
This is like 80s.
Artis Gilmore.
Artis Gilmore, number 6. And then I feel like... So you probably could get 2 here. Number 9, a Bucks.
A box or a bucks?
Bucks.
Okay.
80s legend.
80s Bucks.
Great defensive player. Shooting guard.
80s. Michael Redd was 90s or 2000s.
Yeah.
Shooting guard.
Is named after an Australian city.
Sidney Moncrief.
Sydney Moncrief. I don't know if he's actually named after it, but
Yeah.
that was a good hint.
That
And
was
then
good.
the one left I think you're going to get is number 7. He was a Warrior, 2010s Warrior.
2010's Warrior.
A role player. Like you probably don't know what he looks like.
Championship?
You've heard of him though.
On the championship team?
I think so.
Barbosa?
Not Barbosa.
Jarrett Jack?
No, but along those lines, like
Bald?
no.
I reckon I would know what he looks like because I was a big sort of Warriors fan when I first became a fan. Not bald. Point guard, you said?
He was an
point guard.
all-star, I think.
Monte
for the
Ellis.
Knicks.
Not Monte. Oh, for the Knicks.
He was an all-star, it says.
A Knicks all-star that was on the Warriors. Not bald. I don't know why not bald is such a big hint for me. Can I have another?
He's white.
He's white. White.
Or number 10 for the Warriors. It's pretty hard, but I don't know what else.
Is he international or from the US?
Pretty sure US. His last name I don't want to be, this isn't racist, but it sounds foreign. His last name.
Oh my gosh. It's like Spanish, I know. It's like could be Portuguese or Spanish.
No, it's not.
No? Okay. I might need another hint.
His first name
Lost.
starts with a D and his last name starts with an L.
David Lee.
David Lee.
He wasn't a point guard though.
I didn't say he's a point guard. When I say that.
I thought you said a Warriors guard, a backup guard.
No. I
was just thinking of
say
guards.
that.
I was about to say David Lee. I'm like, nah, not a guard.
I did not say that.
Damn.
He's a power forward. But yeah, minus in his regular season stats across his career, 14 points. Postseason, 5.6 points.
Eek.
And I feel like you're not going to get the other 2, so I'll just give it to you. Number 2 was John Drew of the Atlanta
Wouldn't
Hawks.
have got that.
And number 5 was George McGinnis of the Spurs.
Yeah, probably wouldn't have got that.
It's pretty hard.
Yeah.
But anyway, I thought it was just interesting.
Nice.
I know it would be hard. Test your knowledge.
Yeah,
This
I
guy
wonder
casual.
you know how you said David Robinson? I wonder if that was sort of a made up one because you said he was the one with the turnovers?
No, it was Dominique.
Sorry, Dominique with the turnovers. Was it that many turnovers that it was considerable
He turned
enough
the ball over 0.2 additional times per contest.
per contest? Okay, that probably adds up to like a couple of games. 3 maybe a game.
And then, yeah, what was
pretty
it?
bad.
David Robinson averaged 3 less points. And I read what it says. Yeah, a lot of small differences in stats. And during the twilight of his career when he was older, obviously that took a hit in terms of his
I feel like
net plus minus.
not a hit on Bleacher Report, but often a lot of their lists are made for people to talk about them. So
Wow.
they are. It's
Shots fired.
it's a lot with media companies. They stretch the narrative and
No, that's fair. I thought it was an interesting list.
it was interesting.
That was man. You did pretty well considering it was pretty hard.
Yeah, and based off the fact that I had no idea whether these guys increased or decreased, it was based off the clues that you gave me. So
Yeah.
I had no idea.
That one's for the NBA non-casuals out there. That's for the thinkers.
Blind rank these current NBA duos.
Let's get into it.
First up, Trae Young and DeJounte Murray.
Ooh. See, but is this ranking them as a duo? I might go 5. Straight out the gate.
Last.
I'm going 5. Straight out the gate. I feel like unless you give me like a bum team, then they're not really cohesive. Like we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle.
Again, not as a duo. Like 3. I'll go 3. I feel like that's fair.
Good spot. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic.
Ooh. It's either 2 or 1. I'm going to go 1. I'm going to go 1.
Nice.
You seem happy about that, so I'm scared. 2 left.
Anthony Simons and Anthony Simons and DeAndre Ayton.
Okay, well, I'm glad I left the 4 spot open, so I'll go 4. But obviously, they should be 5. But that's not too bad.
So you're going to put them above Trae
Young and
DeJounte.
Unfortunately, yes, I am. And who's the last?
Tyler Hero and Jimmy Butler.
That's interesting. Yeah,
so they're stuck at the.
They're at the 2. This is a scuffed list, but the 1 and the 3. Actually, no, that probably should be 2. Yeah, Knicks probably should be 2. But my 1 was right, and that was the main thing I was concerned about going to the final couple picks.
It's always tough putting a team. It's always tough putting the first team 5th or first because you just got to play around that.
I know, but I thought you were going to go all-star caliber duos up until the final.
You know I had to play you, though. You know I had to play you.
He had to do it. Can you guess what NBA-related person or item I'm thinking of?
Let's go.
I've got one in mind. It's very difficult, though. It's quite specific.
All right, we'll just go broad here. We'll go Eastern Conference.
I'll give you a 50.
A 50. So I feel like it's something to do with the East.
Perhaps.
Madison Square Garden.
That's so interesting, but... Nah, 18.
I'm going to go South. The Toronto damn, that's about as north as you can get. I'm going to go South. I'm going to go Atlanta Hawks.
20.
It's a little bit warmer. But I don't think it's location based. So,
I'm not going to give you any hints.
Cleveland Cavaliers.
55.
55. We're getting closer. LeBron James.
42.
It's still in the realm. The Indiana Pacers.
55.
Central Division.
72.
Milwaukee Bucks.
55.
Detroit Pistons.
55.
Toronto Raptors. Oh, they're in the... Yeah, never mind.
10.
Trying to think of that last team. And it's always the last team that it is.
It always is.
It always is. The Bulls.
85.
The Bulls. 85. It's not Pat Bev again, is it? You better not say Pat Bev.
8.
Wow, I'm that far away. Michael Jordan.
58.
I've gone away, so I need to get a little bit closer to just the Bulls. I'm going to name another current player. I'm going to go Patrick Williams.
87.
I'm getting closer. Vucevic.
86.
10th seed in the East.
50.
Okay. I've gone away from that.
I mean, they are the 10th seed in the East. But
Yeah, Benny the Bull.
45.
So I reckon it's a player.
It's all mental. It's all mind games.
Alex Caruso.
87.
Lonzo Ball.
86.
DeMar DeRozan.
92.
Zach LaVine.
87.
DeMar's a one-footed game winner.
100.
No way. Let's go.
That's what I was thinking of.
Come on.
That was a good pull.
I was just thinking of iconic DeMar DeRozan Bulls moments, and that's probably the biggest. So, most iconic. So,
It took you a while to get there, but once you got in the straight and narrow, you locked
Yeah.
in. So
I just had to think of players, and then I should have just kept guessing players.
yeah, good get.
Nice.
Well played.
Do you want to do one? Because I'll do one for you, and then
Okay.
can you guess what NBA-related person or item I'm thinking of?
I can. Let's go.
He's confident.
I'm confident. Okay. Eastern Conference.
0.
Western Conference.
50.
Okay. Victor Wembanyama.
I mean, probably 1.
Imagine though. Imagine if I got 100 straight out the gate. Let's go
Not going to be that easy.
Pacific Division. Brother doesn't know his divisions, so he can't
I'm
really
not a
help
good
me.
divisioner. Is that the North one?
No, that's LA
Late.
/ Phoenix.
I mean, s- 69.
So that leads me to believe they're in there. Phoenix Suns.
15.
Lakers.
10.
Kings.
10.
Bro. Clippers.
5.
Warriors.
80.
Okay, I was gonna say if that was like 5, I would have no idea where to go from there.
Yeah.
At 80. Jonathan Kuminga. I'm throwing a bunch of Hail Marys here.
JK. I'm going to go. I mean, it's on the Warriors, but I'd give it a 55.
Oh. Yuck.
You're going back.
Yeah. Oh, I just want to say really specific things.
You can.
Warriors choking a 3-1 lead to the OKC Thunder. No, sorry, OKC choking a 3-1 lead to the Warriors. That's what I meant. In 2016.
90.
Woo! Is it the Cavs 3-1 comeback against the Warriors?
70.
Wow.
You're in the right spot.
Kevin Durant leaving the Thunder to join the Warriors.
You've gone away from. You're at a 70 still. Keep your in there.
Okay, so Warriors Thunder was really close. Who's gone from the Warriors to the Thunder? Chris Paul.
0.
What? So it's something historic. How hard would you say this is? Did you say it's hard?
It's kind of relevant, and it's kind of.
Relevant.
It is kind of like a. It's not a big moment in NBA history, but it is a big moment, sort of.
Or
Maybe the start of
Lock
things to
in.
come.
lock in. Draymond and KD arguing.
Keep you around the 90. I'll give you 91, a little bit closer.
91. Draymond kicking Steven Adams in the nuts.
100, baby. I went to
go.
the most random place I could go, and you found it. Well done.
He nearly did it again the other day.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode number 10 of the Pick and Roll podcast. Can't believe we made it this far. Thank you for all the
Shout out to mum. Shout out to dad.
Shout out. Thank you for all the continued support. Remember, if you're on YouTube, comment down below what you thought of it. Our lists. Did we get anything right, anything wrong? Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. And on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating and let us know what you thought. And to be on that, happy April Fools. If you've made it this far, you've noticed we actually switched chairs.
And clothes.
So
this is actually the next day because we had so many camera issues the day before.
So we're hilarious.
Also, a little side note
point.
as well. I'm away for the next 2 weeks, so it's going to run a little bit differently. It'll be online, so I'll be facing a camera, obviously my laptop, and then Campbell as well. So that's just how things are going to run. Hopefully, you guys tune in because it'll all be the same. Other than that, so
We'll make it work, and it'll be playoff time.
super interesting topics.
So it'll be super interesting. We'll delve really deep into the playoff matchups. Cannot wait. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Adios.